All right, John, for those cops who are thinking about getting out or actually planning on or want to pursue other opportunities, what can run through their minds are the thoughts of, well, this is all I've known. This is all I've done. What can I do? What advice do you give? How do you address that?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing there, Scott, is you got to know yourself. Right. You got to know what gets you up in the morning. You got to know what gets you excited and what your passions are. You have to know we all have internal drivers that are different. But internally and organically to you, what gets you excited? So the good news is they're all different for us. So we're not all competing for the same job. The second thing is you have to know what you're good at. You have to know your KSAEs, I like to say. So that's knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience. And what we mean by that is your knowledge is both your informal and formal training. Your skills are what you can apply. Skills are technical abilities, oftentimes referred to as soft, just in my experience. And then your experience is what have you actually done? So combine those together, and that brings a value proposition to the organization that you're applying for. You also have to be able to set these realistic goals, right? That's one of the things that I see in my consulting practice is that as I talk to cops and law enforcement professionals, is they've got grandiose expectations of what they're going to be competent and capable to do. But the reality is without industry experience, that actually brings up another good point is without industry experience, they're kind of behind the eight ball. They're kind of behind the curve, right? And we have to understand as well is that we're not just talking about career change. We're talking about an industry shift, right? Career change can be referred to in multiple, it's blanket statement, but it could be, agency A to agency B, right? Still law enforcement, but we're talking something totally different here. And that's law enforcement to something else in the private sector. Oftentimes, the one thing I would encourage people to do here though is make sure that you're talking quality, not quantity of time, right? And so in the Marine Corps, we talk about MOS is who you served with. It's often the first several questions, right? Oh, you're a Marine, I'm a Marine, right? You can vouch for this. But, oftentimes first question is, what's your MOS? Oh, it's 03, right? Oh, great. Infantry. Me too. Yeah, I was 0311, 0331. Cool, right? Oh, who'd you serve with? Oh, I was with, this unit, right? Out in 29 Palms or, wherever. The first question that oftentimes we ask in law enforcement is, well, how long did you serve? Or that's the first thing that we offer up. And the reality is that time and service is valuable, but oftentimes not to private sector industry, hiring managers, recruiters, decision makers who could put you or place you into their role, their opportunity. And the reason I bring this up is because it's just so prevalent in our community that law enforcement typically highlights I was a 25-year or I was a 30-year or I served, X amount of years. That does not communicate the value that you bring. That just tells how much time you served in that capacity. So I would encourage, just to recap, right? What gets you up in the morning? These are the things that you need to know in order for a successful transition. It's all I've known. What can I do? You got to know what gets you up in the morning. You got to know your KSAEs. You've got to know your realistic goal. And then you have to understand what value proposition you bring to the table.
I'm glad you brought that up about years of experience doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're looking for, just years of experience. They're looking for value. So an officer has, or a former officer, current officer, whatever, is applying or has applied. And the rubber has met the road. What do they need to know when transitioning? Because it's a lot to leave law enforcement. It really is. So what do they need to know for that transitioning?
Absolutely. And so, yeah, man, good question. So the two things you really have to understand when you are transitioning out of law enforcement, and this is just a mindset thing, is what am I competent about and what am I excited? What am I passionate? What am I competent with? And what am I passionate about? And the reality here is that your competency will lead to quality. What you're experienced at, what you're good at, what you're excited about will lead to quality work. And then what you're passionate about will lead to sustainability. And there's a metric out there in the military segment. I haven't been able to find any data relevant to the law enforcement industry, but the military has this metric that says that in the first year, almost 50% of all retiring vets will leave their job in the private sector after leaving the military in the first year of service. Up to 87 or 90% will leave within the first 2 years. So I can't find any data in law enforcement that suggests the same thing or verifies and vets the same thing, but I bet it's the same. It's a similar thought process, right? It's, oh, that's all I knew. What can I do now, right? And it's because you haven't prepared those two thought processes. What am I competent at? What am I good at? And then what gets me up in the morning? What am I excited about? So the competency and passion formula is really important, something that we coach. And the good news is you've got all the answers. We can't tell you what you're excited about, but you already know intrinsically what you are. And it's typically what you find yourself daydreaming about or just thinking about just arbitrarily throughout the day, right? That might be a clue, right?
Yeah, true. True. Well, whenever an officer, say, gets accepted and they're in a totally new industry, what do they need to know for success?
So as you transition from law enforcement, the law enforcement profession, to the private sector, right? There's two things that we really focus on, and that's preparation, and then there's patience, right? And so as you're transitioning, now this is going back slightly when you're in that stage, right, of leaving, because what we do know is that everyone will transition, whether it's involuntarily or voluntarily. All law enforcement professionals will eventually transition. I know we all.
All right. So to any new officer who's watching this, please understand the job will end at some point.
And, a lot of our clients here at LEC are guys and gals who started with the expectation that they were going to serve a full 30-year career, right? Eventually even up to being the chief one day, right?
Yep, I was that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that happen throughout this career specifically. You're exposed to all sorts of trauma, multipliers in excess of what the average citizen will experience in a lifetime. We experience in weeks, days. So there are trauma points there, but more importantly, for my conversation here with you today, is we have to prepare early, right? Don't wait until the pressure cooker has, almost blown the lid off. Start preparing early. Start thinking about what do I want to do? What are career options available if I couldn't go to work tomorrow? And a good mentor of mine when I was a police officer in the Metro Atlanta area, he asked me a question. He asked everybody this question, but he also asked me this question. And he said, if you could not come to work tomorrow, what would you do? And so, a lot of the responses and I was part of these conversations a lot of times, but for him is like, no. What I mean is can't, not don't, right? Don't, like, not PTO, not take a day off. But what if you cannot do this job tomorrow because of something that happens today? What are you going to do? And so that just highlights the fact of, vouch for me here, Scott. We see this all the time as people involuntarily retire before what their even desired end result was of 30 years in service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So the preparation and the patience piece, right? And I want to just touch on two things. One is preparation. Start preparing early. Start identifying. You don't have to have this exit strategy all in place, but start thinking about what would I want to do after this. And oftentimes what that'll do is that'll lead you into different career segments as a result of what you're preparing for. In my experience, we've seen this in fleet management. I was just talking to a law enforcement professional connection of mine who used to be the fleet maintenance manager of his entire department. He managed 900 vehicles and assets that was worth $35 million. So he shifted that, again, knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience, right? He shifted that experience, and now he's in the private sector, probably making double the amount of money to do the same exact job, or roughly the same job, fleet management, director of fleet management, right? And then there's other sides. You could go into the Office of Professional Standards and work your way up, into a recruiter position. Well, guess what? That's a function of HR. So you could work your way into an HR. I know two individuals, former police officers, personally, who worked their way up, and now they're both VPs of HR in different private sector organizations, right? And it all started with them getting started through both the recruiting aspect and the Office of Professional Standards. So there are aspects of law enforcement that will propel your career forward if that's something that excites you, right? And then the second piece that we really have to consider is the patience aspect. The patience means basically there's only one job position. There's only one job opportunity out there, right? And let's say you have 5 qualified applicants and they have one position. So just because, and this is a word of encouragement to transitioning law enforcement professionals, but just because you don't get that job, don't give up. It was just one job. There's more jobs out there. There's more hiring managers to impress. There's more recruiters to engage with, right? There's more organizations to help you through your career journey. Don't give up just because you're not getting the job. That's just a clue. That's just, hey, okay, I got to tweak something. I've got to say something. And that's something that Law Enforcement Connect can help you with. This resume prep, interview prep, LinkedIn profiles, and also just answering the questions about what are you excited about? What gets you up in the morning? We ask the questions so that you can discover more about yourself.
All units respond. Back up is en route.